So welcome everybody to this webinar. We are extremely excited to be presenting this in conjunction with our valued members, Azun. Today we're going to be looking at cybersecurity as the threat landscape and how websites and APIs can play a role in, I guess, enhancing risk and what you can do to protect yourself. So before we start, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country of Australia and the land on which we meet, and pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So today, leading the charge is Yasin. Yasin, I'm going to hand over to you in just a minute. A reminder to everyone that this session is recorded. We will share the recording afterwards. The chat and the Q&A sections of Zoom are open. So if you have any questions, please pop them in there. And okay, let me hand over to you. I'll mute myself for a little bit. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. Harvey, do you want to start?
Sure.
And then I will go on. Yeah.
Yeah, so just not to take too much time from the actual content, but for everybody's benefit, we as Azun Australia joined up to Smart City Council this year. We're very positive about the partnership. I've personally been to Melbourne and Brisbane for events so far, and this is our first online event that we're presenting. Azun Australia has been going since 2013 from Sydney, expanded to Adelaide, where I am, in the Cyber Centre at Lot 14, for those of you who know it. And we have a presence in all of the major capitals, mainly working with customers in Sydney, Melbourne, here in Adelaide, but very much open to business throughout Australia and New Zealand for that matter. We are a fully owned subsidiary of Azun in Italy, where we employ about 500 people, and where we run both the cyber and a digital business, which offers a lot of end-to-end solutions like smart city impacts that are relevant to our membership of SCC. I'm the onshore director for Australia, and Yasin is our cybersecurity lead for Australia, and also part of the global security operations center team that we run. So I'll hand over to him.
Okay, thank you, Harvey. So hi everyone, my name is Yasin, and I started with Azun 5 years ago. And last year I moved to Australia to do my role here and help the company in Australia. So today we are going to talk about cybersecurity trend landscape, and we are going to focus on web application and API, which is very hot topic these days. So there are several notable high-risk cybersecurity risk threats, and the threat landscape constantly is evolving. So consulting up-to-date sources such as Trusted Cybersecurity, publication, vendor adversaries, threat intelligence reports, and security forums helps you and your organization to stay informed about emerging threats, vulnerabilities, and to do recommended security measures. These sources provide valuable insights, alerts, and guidelines to improve your security posture and respond effectively to the evolving threat landscape. Some of the most commonly used and high-risk cybersecurity threats includes ransomware attacks, advanced persistent threats or APTs, phishing and social engineering, zero-day vulnerabilities, and obviously web application and APIs. So let's start with ransomware. Ransomware attacks continue to be a significant and evolving cybersecurity threat. Ransomware is a type of malicious software that encrypts a victim's data, rendering it inaccessible until a ransom is paid. typically around cryptocurrency. Here are some keys that are some points that are very important when we are talking about ransomware. So ransomware is increasing in frequency. So recently there is a high increase in the number of ransomware attacks. I can say like it was 5 days ago. 13th of this month, a very huge Australian company, and they work in IT and OT. They got hit by Black Basta ransomware. So it's every day that they can happen. In ransomware, you might be encountered with double extortion, with previously ransomware was just the attacker just was encrypting your file, but sometimes in ransomware attacks they exfiltrate your data and then encrypt your data. So beside the risk of losing your information, you also are in the threat to your data being leaked in dark web or deep web. There are also targeted attacks that ransomware attackers will choose different organization to do the delivery of the ransomware, and always there is payment challenges. So should I pay the ransom? Shouldn't I pay the ransom? If I pay the ransom, will be any legal challenges? And what if I pay the ransom and they don't provide the key, or the key doesn't work? So ransomware is very challenging. It's very, I can say for some years, it's been the most and highest risk attack in cybersecurity. Then we have advanced persistent threats, which are a type of cyber attacks that typically involve sophisticated and targeted efforts by skilled threat actors. These kind of attacks are very sophisticated, and they usually are persistent and long-term engagement. So the attackers may gain access and use that access for a long period of time, up to maybe months, to exfiltrate data, to make sure that they have access whenever they want to come back, create backdoors, and to make sure that they have persistence. These kind of attacks are mostly involve nation states, and as I mentioned, they are very sophisticated. They use advanced technique and tactics, and they target organization and industries. And they include lateral movement and reconnaissance part of attacks in most of the attacks. The other topic that I think most of you have already heard about or in everyday life is phishing. Phishing and social engineering technique is one of the most common methods that threats organization and individuals. The attackers manipulate individuals to access sensitive information, such as login credentials, financial details, or personal data. In this topic, we can also talk about or touch spear phishing, which is a targeted phishing attacks that tailored to attack a specific individual or organization. We can talk about whaling attacks. Whaling attacks is a spear phishing attacks which made to target the high-ranking individuals such as executives or senior management. or CEOs. We also have farming that these with farming attacks, attacker usually redirect people to some website to get or increase the hit on those websites. And there are also smishing and vishing, which are voice phishing and SMS phishing. These are very hot topics, and I can say like most of us have experienced it in everyday life. The other topic that helps attackers to gain the access to endpoints are vulnerabilities. And especially talking about zero-day vulnerabilities. Zero-day refers to software vulnerabilities that even the software vendors have not patched the vulnerability or even don't know that vulnerability exists. These vulnerabilities can be exploited by attackers to gain unauthorized access, execute malicious code, or perform other malicious activities before the vendor becomes aware of them. These vulnerabilities, I can say they are priceless, like the price of any zero-day vulnerability is very high in the dark web when they are selling them. And the attacker usually use them when it's a nation state attack or when they want to attack a certain organization. These zero-day vulnerabilities after sometimes become known to everyone, like what happened to Log4j. But the problem again is that it takes time for the vendor to provide the appropriate patching. So even those period of time that there is no patching for that vulnerability considered as 0 days, which is a very high risk situation with a great impact. And then we have web application and API, as most of you in Australia have already heard about API attacks in Australia. They are very hot and everyone are talking about them. So web application are usually the main and easiest access to reach this attack service of the people who are get attacked. These attacks target vulnerabilities in web application and APIs. APIs are application programming interfaces that creates requests to use web application to interfere with web application without human input. These attacks aim to exploit weakness in the application or API to gain unauthorized access, steal sensitive data, as happened in Australia, disrupt services, or perform other malicious activities. So we are going to talk more about web application and API. So attacks to apps and especially to web apps are the leading cause of breaches. Web application firewall protects web application from a variety of application layer attacks, but they have some flaws, such as they only inspect request part, they have a predictable regular expression rule sets, they have latency and other flaws. The web application attacks and risk includes, I can say like OWASP top 10. These are the most common type of attacks that happen with APIs and web application. We can talk about injection attacks, SQL injection attacks to be specific. Injection attacks involve malicious code or or commands being injected into user inputs to gain access or exfiltrate data. We have cross-site scripting that these attacks occurs when malicious scripts are injected into the web page that is viewed by the user. We have cross-site request forgery. These are very technical. So these are different type of attacks. We have API abuse API abuse involves exploiting vulnerabilities or weak access control in an API gateway to gain access, unauthorized access. Attacker may use API keys, access tokens, or session IDs to impersonate authorized user to escalate privileges too. Then we have broken authentication and session management that attacks targeting authentication and session management vulnerabilities to bypass authentication mechanism, hijack user session, or gain unauthorized access to user accounts. There are also denial of service that we are going to talk about, and other type of security threats that threaten your web application and the API. So as Izon, we are going to talk about Mithril. Mithril is a web application and API protection. Mithril is more than a web application firewall. It's a web application and API protection. In fact, WAAP is a service that combines cloud delivered as a service deployment of a WAF, bot mitigation, DDoS protection, and API security. Mithril even goes further. It extends WAF functionality with a lot of modules to better protect the web application or website to increase the web application performance. We already talked about the OWASP Top 10. OWASP Top 10 is a widely recognized and regularly updated list of top 10 most critical web application security risks that involve those we talked about: injection attacks, cross-site scripting. In Mithril, we also add custom rule set. So in any situation, depending the client's environment, type of businesses, if there's a huge difference, if the client's, the business model of the client is finance or it's a production. So with custom rule set, we in Mithril will create a custom rule set that's tailored for that kind of businesses to first stop the attackers to guess the way that they can pass the web application rule set that they usually do. And second, to create an environment that all the legit clients of any web application can interact with the web application or website without any legit request gets blocked or without any malicious request gets through. Another big capability of Mithril is virtual patching. Mithril, without touching the website or web application code, can patch any vulnerability in web application and APIs. It comes very handy, especially when there is no patches, when the application provider needs more time to create the patch. Then again, what happened with Log4j, and this makes you able to instantly resolve all vulnerabilities and 0 day before fixing the code or while waiting for an official patch from a vendor. It's a very I can say, very interesting services of ours that our clients love, because we create rules that will block the request that first to use some kind of vulnerabilities inside your web application or website. DDoS protection. So in DDoS, or denial of service attack, the attackers use a volumetric request to your web application, to your website, to reduce the performance or to block your web application altogether. Protecting a website from this kind of threat is never easy, because it's not enough to have a big server that could handle a lot of requests or connection. It's necessary to recognize bad bots that usually initiate this kind of attack, moreover, it's essential to block the attacks before reaching your website. Mithril has a JavaScript challenge that can easily block bad bots and block volumetric layer 7 attacks that handle all the bad connection and saving your web server from downtime or and network costs. JavaScript challenge when Mithril checking the request for the human interference and behavioral, such as page scrolling or mouse clicks, to understand that these kind of requests initiated by a person, not a bot. Mithril continuously monitor the request rate of the web application per second and activates its DDoS protection when there's a deviation from a normal usage. It detects and mitigates a wide variety of malicious traffic patterns and packet types, also referred to as attack vectors or attack signature. Mithril has its own internal reputation database and password in data breach. A reputation database is a collection of IOCs that Mithril gathers during the time when some kind of malicious request made through the web application that has been protected by Mithril, or use the IOCs that our threat intelligence team provide on daily basis to Mithril to recognize the true worthiness of the request, any individual request. Data breach means that so when there are data breaches, the same password can be used by the same user in many different websites or web application. So whenever some of your employees, some user of your web application log into your website or web application, Mithril check the password hash of that login versus its resources in dark web and deep web to make sure that those information has not been leaked and doesn't exist in any of the data breaches before. So Mithril is more than a web application firewall. It's a web application and API protection. Mithril will give you more capabilities to defend against the evolving landscape of threats and hackers. In Mithril, you also have bot and crawler detection that helps you to define which are the bad bots versus which are the good bots. Good bots can be Google bots, Yahoo bots that gather more information about your website and give those information to the user. So Mithril can help you by giving you better performance, better capabilities, and make sure that you're safe and you're safe against any evolving campaign that happens all around the world. So yeah, that was it. If you have any question, I'm here for you.
Thanks so much, Yas. I'm going to just ask you to stop sharing for a moment and allow me to share my screen. We have a quick survey, and we'll share it when we share the recording afterwards. So on the screen for everyone at the moment, there should be a QR code displaying. If you're able to scan it and fill in the quick survey, that would be very helpful. Otherwise, we will be sharing it afterwards. And as Yas said, the chat section is now open. So feel free to pop any questions in there. Yas, I just thought I'd ask while we're waiting for some questions, what would you recommend as the first action people take after this call? Is there something we can do to check websites, check APIs, and check our overall security? What do you think the first thing is that everyone should be doing?
Okay, so that's a very good question. The first thing you need to do is to know your attack surface. Okay, your presence. Do you have a web application? Do you have a website? Or how is your infrastructure, IT infrastructure? Are your infrastructure on premises, or are they on the cloud? Because these create different scenarios for you, how you should do and how you can protect your business. So, and then it's very important to know when you are the weakest, and what you are protecting. So what is valuable in your business for attackers? So is it your data? What will happen if someone gain access to your data? And, it's very based on your business and what you want to protect.
Yeah, nice. Thanks. So, website, where your website's hosted, I'm assuming then any CRMs or databases that are included in the business infrastructure should be checked as well. And then another question I had, and I'm not sure if it's for you or for Harvey, if we look at the smart cities landscape specifically, where the potential points of weakness are so much more than a website, what else should we be considering in this infrastructure assessment? Your mic is just off at the moment, I think.
Thanks, Robin. A good starting point I can recommend against any attack surface that Yasin has identified is what we call a penetration test. So we can do that with a dedicated team. It's a big part of our business. And we will basically identify your vulnerabilities, tell you which ones are most exploitable, and what you need to do to fix them. Now, that can be for website and APIs. It can be for your CRM. It can be, for those of you who got an ERP, it can be your ERP. It can be basically anything in your infrastructure. Obviously, with smart cities, you're going to be storing a lot of personal information. Right, so just as we've seen with health funds and with telcos, you need a lot of sensitive information often to build an effective smart city. And because Aizun in Italy is in both smart cities and in cybersecurity, I think we have a pretty good understanding and can help with strategies. So first step, as Yasin said, know your weak points, know your basic infrastructure. And if you don't, we can basically help you identify that with a pen test and some social engineering, like a phishing campaign. So the phishing campaign targets behaviors of people. So obviously Robin wouldn't, but are we going to catch Robin when she's particularly busy and she's got to double click on an email from a non-trusted source? Suddenly she's having to change her phone, her laptop, whatever, because that's how it works.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the website is the virtual shopfront. It's the window to the outside world. And for many councils, it's where they communicate with their constituents. So keeping that protected is certainly the first port of call. Any other questions from the audience? It's your opportunity to ask all of your cyber questions. Put them on the spot. So what we'll do is any questions that come through afterwards, Harvey will share contact information for yourself and Yaz when we share the recording of this chat. And we are also looking forward to having Azun involved in a cybersecurity snapshot podcast that we'll be doing every month. Oh, there we go. There's a question there. Does the product only detect or also prevent attacks?
Okay, that's a very good question, Iman. The web application firewall by default will prevent attacks. So they are like, I can say, kind of IPS. But what we do with Mithril, we don't go to prevention level at first. We will stay monitoring for a while to, to understand which kind of requests are valid and legit for web applications, so that, we can reduce the false positive when some legit request will be blocked or when something is going through. So it's a prevention method for sure. And in Mithril, what we have is more technical. I haven't talked about it, is a paranoia level. So when your website is under a lot of attacks, a lot of suspicious things is going on inside your website, Mithril detects a high amount of abnormality. It will increase the paranoia level. With the higher paranoia level, you get more requests blocked because Mithril is in more defensive standing. But yeah, that are very technical.
Okay. There is another question.
Go on.
Pardon? There is another question from Nils. What are the requirements of the Australian government for their council's security?
Okay, so I think all of them should at least go through Essential 8, I think. And with Essential 8, there are some security controls that you may have to check that you are in compliance with those controls and compliance. Mostly you have to do, and you have to know your cyber risk and do preventing steps to make sure that you have that risk under control.
Okay. I think, Nils, that's something we may address in a positioning paper that we're working on with Azun. So we'll definitely look to send that out to you after this webinar. Well, I think if there are no other questions that come through in the next minute, we can look to wrap up. We'll have the recording live on YouTube, share it on our various channels, as well as the survey, and we'll be looking to publish those survey results. There is also an exciting discount code that will be shared in that communication, so keep an eye out for that. And of course, if you have any questions about your own cybersecurity, in particular the risk that your website and APIs pose, definitely reach out to Harvey and Yaz from Azun, and we look forward to having you on the next webinar. Thanks so much,
Thanks for the opportunity.